In the beginning, there was nothing but darkness. No land, no sky, no sound, and no movement. The universe was empty and silent, covered in deep darkness like an endless night. There were no stars shining above, no oceans moving below. Time had not yet begun, and creation had not yet taken form. Everything remained still, waiting for the command of the Creator. Then God spoke. His voice moved across the emptiness, powerful and clear. With authority, he declared, "Let there be light." At that moment, the universe stirred. Light burst into existence, spreading across the darkness. Brightness filled the vast emptiness, pushing back the shadows that had covered everything. Light and darkness were no longer mixed together. God separated the light from the darkness. The light became day, and the darkness became night. For the first time, there was rhythm and order. Day followed night, and night followed day. Time itself had begun. The light revealed the beginning of creation. The empty universe now held brightness and purpose. What had once been silent and formless now carried the first sign of life and direction. The radiance of the first day shone across creation. Darkness no longer ruled alone. Light now filled the heavens, marking the start of God's work. This was the first day, the beginning of all things, when light entered the world and creation began to unfold. On the second day, God made the sky. The earth was still covered with deep waters. Thick clouds and mist filled the darkness above. The world had no clear sky yet. Everything remained hidden beneath layers of water and shadow. Then God began to form a great space above the earth. The waters started to move and separate. Some waters stayed below, covering the surface of the earth. Other waters were lifted high above. Between them, a vast open space appeared. This great space became the sky. It stretched wide over the world, high above the oceans below. Clouds began to drift across this new sky, and the heavens opened above the earth. The waters below remained gathered across the surface, while the sky stood above them, vast and endless. This was the second day. On the third day, God spoke again. The earth was still covered with water. Great oceans stretched across the surface. Waves moved across the deep waters, and the land still remained hidden beneath them. Then God gathered the waters together. The waters began to move across the earth. Slowly, they pulled away from certain places. As the waters moved aside, dry land began to appear. The earth rose from beneath the waters. Wide land spread across the surface of the world. Mountains began to rise high into the sky. Valleys formed between the mountains. Large plains stretched across the land. The earth now had shape and form. Rivers began to flow across the land. Fresh water moved through the valleys and across the plains. Streams joined together and formed larger rivers that traveled across the earth. The land was no longer empty. Then God spoke again. From the soil, small green plants began to grow. Tiny shoots pushed up through the ground. Life began to appear across the land. Grass spread across the plains. Flowers began to bloom in many places. Trees started to grow tall and strong. Soon, the land was covered with plants of every kind. Green fields stretched across the earth. Trees stood across the hills and valleys. The world was now filled with life and beauty. On the fourth day, God spoke again. The sky, which had been formed on the second day, was now empty of celestial bodies. The heavens still lacked the signs of time and seasons. Then God created the sun. He placed it high in the sky to shine over the earth. Its light spread across the land and the waters, bringing warmth and clarity. The sun marked the day and gave life to all living things. Next, God created the moon. He set it in the night sky to reflect light when the sun was gone. The moon cast a gentle glow, illuminating the earth after dark. Its phases would guide time and signal the passing months. God then placed countless stars in the sky. They twinkled above the world, filling the heavens with brilliance. The stars marked the seasons and guided the cycles of time. They decorated the night with patterns and shapes, shining for all to see. The sky was now complete. The sun, the moon, and the stars worked together to separate day from night. They brought order to time, guiding life on earth. The fourth day was finished. The heavens were full of light, and the earth was ready for the days to come. On the fifth day, God spoke again. The seas were vast and deep, stretching across the earth. The waters had been gathered on the third day, but they were empty of life. Then God filled the oceans with creatures of every kind. Tiny fish darted through the waves, and schools of colorful fish swam together in patterns. Great sea creatures moved through the deep, their massive bodies gliding beneath the surface. Coral reefs and underwater plants began to grow, providing homes for these new creatures. The oceans became alive with motion and color, teeming with life. God also filled the skies. Birds of all shapes and sizes began to fly across the heavens. Some soared high above the clouds, while others skimmed over rivers and oceans. Their wings caught the sunlight, and their songs filled the air. The seas and skies were now full of movement, sound, and beauty. Life had spread across the water and into the air. The fifth day was complete. The earth's waters and skies were alive, and all living things moved in harmony with the world God had created. On the sixth day, God spoke again. The earth was now filled with oceans, skies, plants, and living creatures in the water and air. But the land itself was still quiet. The fields and forests waited for life to walk upon them. Then God created animals to live on the land. Creatures began to appear across the earth. Small animals moved through the grass, while larger animals walked across the plains. Each kind was different in shape and movement. Some animals grazed peacefully in open fields. Others climbed across rocky hills and mountains. Herds traveled together across wide valleys. Wild animals roamed through forests and open lands. Gentle creatures rested near rivers and streams. Life spread across every part of the land. Animals of every kind filled the earth. Some were strong and powerful. Others were small and swift. Each one had its place in the world God had formed. The once quiet land was now full of movement and sound. Footsteps crossed the plains, and life covered the earth from mountains to valleys. The sixth day continued as the world prepared for something greater still. The land was alive, and creation was nearing completion. Then God spoke once more. From the dust of the ground, God formed a man. The earth shaped beneath his hands, and the form of a human body appeared from the soil. The man lay still upon the ground, lifeless and silent. Then God breathed into the man. The breath of life entered him, and the man opened his eyes. He began to breathe and move. The man had become a living person. God named the man Adam. God prepared a special place for him. It was a beautiful garden called Eden. The garden was filled with trees, rivers, and green fields. Flowers grew across the land, and the air was calm and peaceful. Everything in the garden was good. The animals lived there peacefully, and Adam cared for the land around him. God later created a woman to live beside the man. Her name was Eve. Together they lived in the garden and walked among the trees God had made. In the center of the garden stood a special tree. God had told them not to eat the fruit from this tree. For a time, everything remained peaceful. But in the garden, there was also a serpent. The serpent was clever and spoke to Eve. The serpent questioned what God had said. It told her that eating the fruit would make her wise. It convinced her that nothing bad would happen. Eve looked at the fruit on the tree. It appeared good and pleasing to the eye. She took the fruit and ate it. Then she gave some to Adam, and he also ate it. At that moment, everything changed. They realized they had disobeyed God. Fear and shame entered their hearts. Because of their choice, sin entered the world. The perfect peace of the garden was broken. God told Adam and Eve that they would no longer remain in Eden. Life outside the garden would include hard work, pain, and struggle. So Adam and Eve left the Garden of Eden. They walked away from the place where everything had once been perfect. Yet God did not leave them without hope. Even then, God made a promise. One day, He would bring redemption. One day, what had been lost would be restored. And so the story of creation came to its turning point. It is a story of beginnings, of choices, and of the hope that redemption would one day come.